So, for the new viewers here, hi, I'm encomiapand. For a little over 2 years, I've been making analytical videos about video games, either in series I've long held fondness for, or a completely spur-of-the-moment thing that I proceed to dedicate the next few weeks of my life to. The title says video essayist, but I wouldn't really consider myself one. The term essay holds a level of prestige and formality that I don't necessarily feel I capture. I like making jokes, I like incorporating extravagant visual gags, I like using the words gonna and dunno, which various text editing software keep insisting is wrong. Or in other words, I don't strive for pure academia. That's of course dime a dozen, times a dozen, to the power of a dozen on this platform. Anything in the vein of analysis containing an intro, thesis, and whatever else in between is one of the most ubiquitous video formats in the modern day. I'm merely yet another among the waves. Waves which themselves have ebbed and flowed over the years, while curiously still managing to resemble AVGN. It's like the primordial soup of all online gaming content. To return to the question posed by the title, among such an oversaturated format, how does a regular person like me go about expressing myself, without the years and years of pre-existing experience that more popular channels have? And moreover, the trial and error process involved in putting videos like these together. Since I'm far from being an expert, I can't exactly recommend taking anything I say here as the right way of doing things. Regardless though, I need to vent. This shit's hard. Even when it comes to just brainstorming the subject material, it can be difficult to think of something I would actually be interested in, while avoiding a total retread of a topic from a previous video, and in general, maintaining a somewhat diverse output. I still have a certain favorite that I fall back on more frequently than I'd like, but the actual script writing, however, I would compare to that one boss fight you get stuck on for ages, with only the faintest hint of a light at the end of the tunnel, each paragraph like a new attack pattern, where both strategy and execution needs to be mulled over in equal parts. It can be easy to forget why you're even doing it in the first place. Nevertheless, even with my quite frankly abysmal word count per day, the fleeting moments where things simply click into place and the writing spills out makes expressing my thoughts through this medium worth it, I'd say. There are so many creators on this platform who do fantastic work, some whose creative presence goes well beyond their online videos, and that's something I've continued to take inspiration from well after starting this channel. Maybe that inspiration is a bit too apparent in spots, but here's just a few of those people I like watching. The reason I want to talk about video games is because I feel I have a unique perspective to add to the conversation, topics I don't see others bringing up, or points I feel could be challenged. It's why you're listening to me right now. Still, whatever ends up leaving my cranium is a very drawn-out process, and it's been by far the largest bottleneck in getting a video out there, maybe unsurprisingly so. This 34-minute video about my backlog on the Switch took nearly a month to write, while this 20-minute one I made afterwards only took around 20 days. To my understanding, the regular way is to write a script first, do the voiceover, and edit it together. This is actually how I used to produce videos for quite a while. It was only once I tackled a much bigger project, one I knew would take many months from the get-go, it became clear a conventional production pipeline wouldn't work for my needs. No more scripting phase, no more editing phase, it's all production now. If you notice how my upload frequency increased in 2025, that is why. It was the only way I could get that huge Sonic Frontiers video out before the end of the year, and there are some drawbacks to that. When you're having to take into account so many elements on a day-to-day basis, your mind inevitably turns to goop a little trying to decide what to focus on, making it easy for important things to go by the wayside like source citations or, I guess, community posts. Also, revising major swaths of scripts after the fact wasn't ever something I really did, but when so many other parts are being done in parallel, my motivation to do so dwindles rapidly. Regardless, breaking down what you find to be second nature, how it all comes together, becomes necessary to a degree to get a better understanding of why you think what you do, and if that should be challenged. Some level of introspection and scrutiny is needed to make something thoughtful, even if certain stuff comes naturally. Shit, I didn't fully understand what a verb was until after starting this channel. I couldn't be further from the most skilled writer on this platform. So once that's all done, or in my case, once a section of the script is done, I move over to recording the voiceover, like what you're hearing right now. And it can also be very painful. I'm just gonna be upfront, my microphone setup is really bad. I've been using the same blue snowball for nearly 8 years, and I have no easy way of bringing it up to my face for the audio to sound good, while still being able to read the script. So, I have two options. Either A, I leave it on the side of my desk like this, which makes my untreated room very apparent. Or B, I grab hold of the thing and never let go. Which, in turn, kind of hurts to do for extended periods. The slightest vibrations from my hand become noticeable bumps in the audio, and this persistent deep hum shows up in the waveform, which I sincerely hope has never been audible for my viewers. Also, that happens a lot. You could probably already tell from watching, but the speaking part of these videos isn't my strong suit, and the technical juggling I'm forced to do isn't helping with that. My intonation can be weird, my enunciation isn't always on point, I tend to do the thing where I stretch out the final syllable in a sentence, and no matter how much water I chug, there's still enough mouth noises to keep me up at night. I don't personally mind when other creators exhibit those traits, but I'm well aware of how much of a turnoff that can be for some people. There's a delicate balance to be struck between speaking naturally and putting on some formality to sound natural in this scripted format. Lately, I've been trying to adjust my voiceover style, including speaking at a faster pace since that was a complaint with earlier videos of mine, though I'm unsure how effective that shift has actually been. I don't want to come off too negative about my feelings making videos, but this has consistently been the one part of the process that's felt more utilitarian than genuinely fun for me, though I recognize upgrading my setup could go a long way in remedying that. After editing together the voiceover, which takes around an hour or so for each segment of the video, I move on to the part that... Hey, eyes on the screen, we're talking about visuals. Put down your phone or game or whatever you're doing for just a second. To be real, my editing style isn't all that complicated. I try not to linger on a single clip for more than 6-ish seconds, though I'm not literally counting the time between cuts. I more so edit clips together based on the vibes. Drop in several mostly keyframe transition effects, as well as some on-screen text, and that's essentially the meat of my videos is visuals. I'm almost embarrassed by the simplicity, but the fairly quick cuts and occasional elaborate bits I disperse throughout I think keeps each video enjoyable enough, without being overstimulating for the most part. As for what I actually use to edit with, my software of choice since I started this channel has been DaVinci Resolve. I've tried other programs before like Vegas Pro and Premiere Pro, noticing a trend there, but they kinda suck ass. They also cost money, whereas DaVinci has a very robust free version with surprisingly few limitations. Besides the sharpening filter, you gotta pay $300 to unwatermark this artistry. I like messing around with the paint write-on effect for emphasis, or anchoring a clip to the tracking data of another, stuff I couldn't easily do in other programs alone, even if my understanding of the whole Fusion node system is still quite limited. But I guess that's yet another skill I get to build up, like learning to actually use keyboard shortcuts. Pro tip: use them. If you ever use footage from a variety of different things, it soon becomes apparent just how insane the storage cost is, in every sense of the word cost. Here's every single storage device that's currently in my possession, and here's how much they've been used up. Quick tip for those dealing with the same struggle, whether as a YouTuber or just a general video file hoarder: just pull the goddamn trigger and get a multi-terabyte hard drive. I recently got a 6TB external drive for about $150. You do not need piles of SD cards to cycle through like I used to do. Genuinely, I cannot understate how important it is to have a central high-capacity drive to pull footage from, instead of constantly shuffling shit around and running out of storage all the time, like I had to deal with for multiple years. It makes for a much better buffer. And another thing, while it might seem pretty tempting to only record gameplay clips for what you need for a particular line, if you're showing a game for more than a couple seconds, it's significantly more convenient to record and edit around a full playthrough, assuming you don't just download one from the internet. Above all else, I try not to let my editing style get too stagnant, to get a little experimental with the presentation, even if it's something that only sticks around for a single video. You may have even seen some new presentational choices crop up within this very video. Oh, and if you're wondering about all the markers on my project timelines, I use those to keep track of stuff I need to add or change, mainly sticking to red or yellow ones to indicate severity. So, to recap, scriptwriting is the bulk of production time, and can be kind of creatively draining, but still typically fulfilling in the end, even if I'm not fully satisfied with what I wrote. Voiceover follows shortly after on a per-segment basis, and is a total jerry-rigged hand-trembling operation that happens to turn out okay. And editing it all together can be the most immediately liberating, in not requiring as much thought energy, but can still carry some level of tedium in other aspects, and I tackle those main three aspects intermittently instead of in a strict order. So, what comes after, then? For my purposes, this might as well be the actual post-production, even if it typically takes less than a week. This is when I have a script written from start to end, all the voiceover is stitched together, most of the on-screen clips are accounted for, but there's just a few more roadblocks standing in the way. To get the video to a release-ready state, I need to deal with all these things I neglected tackling beforehand because it would be very, very tedious. If I want to ever dream of seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, I need to stop beating around the bush, get off my ass, and address those elephants, whether I like it or not. Occasionally, I have such a strong idea for a video that I make the thumbnail right at the start of production, but usually it's some shit I cobble together in the days leading up to when I upload it, which in and of itself only becomes clear once everything is done. Before that, though, my timeline looks like a total mess with sporadic gaps between clips, sometimes minor stuff I could have dropped into the project at any time, but other times much more significant clips I need to show in order to get my point across, even if they're brief. It's usually not that severe, besides that one time my lack of a capture card stalled work on a video for weeks, but filling out those gaps, alongside looking for background music to insert, can be very demoralizing. Being so close to the finish line, yet still feeling further away than ever. As simple as my sketches representing myself and whatnot might be, I almost always save them for last, whether because of the sheer quantity needed for a project, or simply because drawing is an innately rigorous act, at least when you're doing it on a mouse like I am. One time, I left a brief portion of a video completely blank, where art was supposed to be shown that I never ended up drawing, but it worked out sorta okay, and it already took 7 hours straight to upload, so I ended up rolling with it. At a certain point, no matter how many minor tweaks you want to make at that part or that other part, you must eventually concede and accept the progress you made as worth releasing, which is maybe not a thought one sits on if they're dropping multiple videos a week, but for me, each video is a project I treat with delicacy. It's why I literally go through the initial render of a video to check for any errors or slight improvements I could make, sometimes going through the process multiple times over. But some of those slight misgivings inevitably need to be disregarded to move forward. After settling on the final cut, I upload the rendered file to YouTube, privately, because there's still a few more post-production shenanigans that need addressing before the video actually goes live. Mainly adding closed captions, since they're pretty nice to have. YouTube has a built-in tool that formats a provided text file into pretty decent caption data, though I always go through and manually tweak it since it's not perfect. I don't know how it works, I'm just hoping it isn't a burn force button. After that, I do the metadata stuff. Usually, I have a title in mind by this point, but the description is just whatever comes to mind in the form of an afterword thing. Once I've gone through adding the final thumbnail, adding tags, and doing some final checks to make sure the video file doesn't have any massive errors, I schedule it for release in the afternoon. As much as I'd sometimes like for a project to completely exit my brain after finishing it, the central topic and all the little branches I explore continue to bounce around in my head, by the very nature of doing analysis. And once you've put yourself out there enough, you garner some attention, people subscribe, comments start showing up, you begin to be perceived. If there's one thing I underestimated when getting into making YouTube videos, it's having an audience actually respond to the works I make. I've never felt more anxious about receiving a comment in my life. I even went out of my way to disable notifications for them, since YouTube does that, apparently. Nevertheless, it's hard to resist peeking over at the YouTube Studio page, where the 3 most recent comments are laid bare, front and center. And not only do people have things to say about the thing I made, some of those things are critiques of my writing. And that's fine. Whether it's a drawing, a novel, a piece of music, or even a silly video like this, putting a creation out into the world inherently involves some relinquishing of control on the creator's end, like some kind of death of the offer. People are free to discuss what they personally took away from it, positive or negative, interpreted one way or the other. That's a natural part of the creative process. In particular, analyses like the ones I make fundamentally invite conversation by positing my own viewpoints, giving way to them being challenged, bringing up things I overlooked, or pointing out shit I got plain wrong. Publication. But mainly this part, unintentional fan art usage included. I make legitimate mistakes sometimes. Whether or not you fully get your point across in the first place, that sort of discussion is necessary to continue improving your work, even if applying the feedback you receive can be difficult to figure out at times. Assuming a controversial subject isn't involved, the majority of comments on videos like these typically aren't that divisive. Creators still hold a significant amount of control with the narrative they present in their videos, but the viewer response is rarely ever a total hive mind. So the unfiltered comments you get to see as a creator can be really illuminating, besides the ones that are just dumb jokes or otherwise random observations, but those are welcome too. Yes, I try to put a Homestuck reference in every video of mine. No, I'm probably not gonna make a Homestuck video. Yet. I've always wondered why YouTubers are like that. I still don't really have a good answer to that question, but dipping my toes into video making has let me see through the frosted window, to get a better look into the specific conventions that have shaped this platform, and the pitfalls that are all too easy to fall into at each step of the process. As a viewer, you might think you'd never make most of the mistakes you see creators making, but even with that prior knowledge, you can't show those dumbass video essayists how it's done without going through the very same ropes as everyone else. Unless you've already written actual, formal essays, in which case maybe you can get a leg up on most other creators. So maybe, and you don't necessarily need to listen to this advice, but whenever you come across a video that seems like rage bait, has an annoying title and or thumbnail, writing that doesn't exactly land, a speaker who sounds strange, sponsor segments that break up the pace, consider there's a real person on the other side, someone who might financially depend on this platform, and thus need to at least partly conform to the platform's bizarre conventions to have their stuff seen. I don't say that to deflect, I'm saying to reflect. The margin between yourself and those bigger creators is a lot thinner than it seems, and as much as you should approach what people put out with a critical eye, I think it's also worth giving some space if they aren't the greatest, even if you ultimately don't agree with whatever stance they take. Once again, this shit's hard, which is why I'm at a bit of a crossroads. This channel initially started out as an experiment. What if I tried making analysis videos about my favorite games? And could I keep doing it long term? Safe to say, that experiment has been going pretty well the past few years, but I'm starting to feel like I've hit a rut with how I currently do it. I've certainly improved on various technical levels. I'm more confident with my voiceover, my writing's a little less rambly. I've managed to streamline my production pipeline across the board, including my upload frequency. Yet, when it comes to how I approach topics, the actual discussion I have within videos and the feces I reach, I think I sort of stagnated. My videos have mainly served for me to speak my mind on whatever subject I happen to be invested in at a given time, so doing deeper research to see why something is the way it is comes secondary. The impetus of an encomiapand video is not a research phase, more often family-friendly game franchises. And I think that's led to them feeling somewhat shallow, in some ways perpetuating the same viewpoints you'd probably hear from other creators, despite my attempts to challenge those notions. So whenever I do need to broach a more complex topic as a part of a video, I don't exactly stick the landing. For my latest video, the one about Pokémon's Lumio City and how it relates to other parts of the franchise, most of my writing about the cultural inspirations Pokémon has had over the years was mostly vibes based. I did some surface level digging just to make sure I wasn't completely off the mark, and there are clear points where my analysis suffers because of that, something I partly understood even when writing the script. At its core, a video concept like that one I think is genuinely really compelling, but the execution still matters. I've got great ideas for videos on the back burner simply because I feel I can't do them justice, with my borderline incurious approach to putting the words to paper, which is then exacerbated by my personal struggle with forming scripts to begin with. Again, not to sound like I hate the video making process, but it's been difficult to find the time to do anything else creatively without it feeling like a distraction. That's not to say I'm about to figuratively pack my bags and stop doing this, but I've got other creative aspirations besides what I put out on YouTube. Recently, the thought of finally setting up some kind of donation method has been weighing on my mind, for anyone willing, of course. It'd be nice to have in general, but as someone who's often on the YouTube grind, as some might call it, I should probably open the door to that instead of continuing to do so with no possible financial benefit. As niche video essayist number 47,243, I doubt I'd ever have enough supporters to make a living, but any amount of additional income to support my work here would be nice to have. Consider that tentative. Ultimately, though, I want to continue to provide my own creative input in the online gaming sphere. That's part of the reason why there's so many drawings in these videos, not just because I have to in order to fill some blank, God knows how many times I had to for this one, but to show that this is my own work. I'm not sure if you could call what I do an art form in its own right, but I still feel like an artist in the broader sense. And in a world filled to the brim with anti-artists, more people like me, with a distinct style of writing, voicing, and editing that can change and evolve, might be what we need. I hear some call the other guys, prompt engineers. I honestly don't know where this channel might end up another year down the line. I couldn't tell you how much I'll commit to giving more in-depth perspectives on topics, or any other wishes I've expressed. It's entirely possible this is the first video of mine you've seen, and you still don't have a single clue what I'm talking about despite my best efforts to provide context. But if you were intrigued by anything I talked about at any point in this video, and you want to see more, reach out your hand. I have a long way to go as a creator, but that doesn't mean this isn't a path worth trekking, and I want to see what lies ahead, together. In a figurative way, don't get too parasocial now. Oh, yeah, and happy holidays.